Elden Ring is a legendary game by any measure, but my biggest complaint has always been FromSoft's outdated and clunky co-op multiplayer experience. But now, all of that and more is a thing of the past, because modders have managed to create the Elden Ring co-op experience of our dreams with the mod Seamless Co-op. I mean, it could make sense back in Dark Souls times to have a relatively clunky experience, where you were forced to part with your partner after defeating bosses or when changing regions, but in Elden Ring, we do after all find ourselves in an open world, mostly without clearly defined borders, and often without distinctive fog gates. In other words, it feels even worse when you're confined to just one area, or have to resummon each other after every little thing that forces you apart, whether that be defeating bosses, changing regions, or something as simple as death. This is where Seamless Co-op literally changes everything, because now you can enjoy playing alongside a friend, or really playing around with a total of 5 people in the same party, and experience quite literally everything Elden Ring has to offer, seamlessly together. And if you want to see more of both Seamless Co-op and Elden Ring Reforged, which I'll cover later, it would mean a lot if you like the video and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to leave your thoughts as well. Elden Ring might be a single-player game first, but if you've spent just 5 seconds in the game, you've probably noticed all of the messages laying about, talking about dogs and offering heads and whatnot, and you might have even spotted some ghosts. These are of course left by other players, and the fact that we can both ask others for help and both invade and be invaded by them means that for all intents and purposes, Elden Ring very much is an online experience, a passive one at the very least. But fighting through the monsters of these worlds and facing these challenges head-on, alongside a buddy or 4, at least after doing it on your own once or twice, adds an entirely new world of Elden Ring, and provides a multiplayer experience you've never seen before, but might have dreamt of like me. And you can actually execute those sneak attacks you see in trailers and do with NPCs all the time in other games now, but now for real.
Oh!
Now you might think this is a hard thing to do, but it's literally just a matter of a download and moving some files around for 1 or 2 minutes, setting your preferred multiplayer password as outlined in the readme, launch the game, and start a fresh save. Then, once you're in the game, head over to your inventory, use the tiny great pot to open your world to others while your friend uses the effigy of Malenia, and voila! You're in the same world completely seamlessly. You'll still die at the hands of the first tutorial boss of course, but that's another matter entirely. For you see, as soon as you link up in joyous cooperation, it all just works. I mean, okay, there are some occasions where the game bugs out, like when there's a small chance that the host gets stuck at the bonfire if you both rest up at the same time and the invader leaves first, and there is the occasional missing models of horses, meaning you'll encounter some pretty hilarious moments. But listen to that sentence. The occasional missing models of horses? That is indeed correct, my friend. Seamless Co-op now allows every member of your party to ride their own torrents just like in single player. This change, what seems to the untrained eye at least like a tiny toggle, is a game changer in itself. Because due to Elden Ring's open world nature, it actually feels quite negligent to not allow horseback riding in places like Limgrave, Leonia of the Lakes, the Weeping Peninsula, or indeed anywhere else out in the open. Because as we all know by now, the lands between is one massive place. And whether you're running on foot or riding atopside your magical reindeer, no area is out of bounds. This means that yes, you actually can enter the same new legacy dungeon areas from the open ones, you can talk to NPCs at the same time, do their quests, although you should go for the same storyline unless you want to break stuff I think, get their items and rewards, you can both rest at bonfires, purchase items from vendors, and yes, you may both of you fast travel to whichever side of grace you want. Even, and this feels so damn good, both travel to the Round Table Hold. I need you to trust me when I say the following words. Seamless Co-op for Elden Ring is like playing the game in an alternate universe where FromSoft actually does multiplayer in a competent way, and it's nothing short of a masterpiece. But now you might say, Andy, what about the difficulty? And what happens when a player dies? Well, I understand your concerns, my friend, but hear me out. Because this is where another mod entirely enters the chat, one even easier to install and hop into.
Ooh! Didn't even know you were coming. That was badass.
Elden Ring and Souls games do become a lot easier when you're playing together with someone, even with the help bonus that bosses receive. In our first few hours of Seamless Co-op, my friend Pungles, or Rogue Ranks as you might know him as, and if you don't, make sure to sub to his channel as well, we loved our experience, but we did find it to be a rather easy affair. For one, it's just all too simple to cheese your way through the game against humanoid enemies with backstab attacks. And in general, even against normally tough enemies and bosses, we found ourselves having a bit too easy of a time. Well, don't worry now, because seamless co-op works perfectly well when running alongside the Elden Ring Reforged mod, an absolutely astounding piece of modding magic. When resting at a bonfire, Reforged has an in-game menu that allows you to tweak various aspects of gameplay to your liking in order to make it more challenging again. Pongles and I decided to test out the Adept mode, which among other things raises enemy HP, their stamina recovery, and damage dealt by quite a lot. But we felt that even this mode was too easy. So we settled on Hard mode, which to us became the perfect one. Better stats for enemies overall, and even harsher penalties on the players. This felt like the sweet spot, and there are a few reasons for this. For one, enemies hit harder, have more health, and importantly have more poise, which makes them tougher overall, likely about as tough as they come across when fighting in single player. Second is that among the player debuffs is a minus 20% hit to HP from recovery flasks, which really makes it harder to rely on healing to make it through. In addition, the hard mode enables certain hard enemy effects, which includes the important features of making bosses more aggressive. Enemies actually begin to recover small amounts of health over time if they don't get hit to promote player action. And importantly, the fact that alerted enemies are immune to backstabs, which is awesome because it removes that cheesy feeling I mentioned earlier, where you can't just circle around for massive damage and breaking enemies in the same way. These aspects make the game a lot more challenging and fun when playing with a friend then. You can even make use of even harder modes for when you're playing even more people. These challenging settings made certain areas just not viable to run through as soon as we're used to. But that's a part of the fun, of course, to grind just a bit more before you can move on. Or as always, just get good, or make use of different tactics. On the flip side, Reforged is not just about adding more challenge, but it's also about seriously enhancing Elden Ring and making it feel a lot more modern and genuinely fun in multiplayer. For example, if you drink a healing or mana potion in the immediate vicinity of your ally, you'll now both heal from those potions, which adds a lot of strategy and need for communication when spending valuable flasks that, remember, now heal you less in the harder modes. You also slowly recover FP over time now, which actually feels really natural. And crucially, in terms of deaths, by default, as long as one player remains alive, the other one will come back and is able to fight again. But the kicker here is that the resurrected player spawns with a curse, meaning that their stats become significantly lower per death. This may only be fixed once both players rest at a site of grace, and it's an amazing way to keep the challenge, but to make even death seamless in co-op. However, if you're both fighting a boss, the dead player will spectate the fight and only be resurrected together if and when the second player falls. This feature can be turned off if you don't like it even, meaning that you can only come back when the other player dies or rests as well.
There we go. Woo!
We even have fun new challenges littered around the world, from finding shards of grace which you can use to purchase power-ups, or archery challenges where you run around and shoot targets for rewards that allow you to change the color hue of your gear. Indeed, there are a ton of Reforged features to look through and pick between, and don't forget about that beautiful UI change, which makes itself known in a lot of ways, from the new map markers to entirely redesigned windows. There are even more modes here for a non-multiplayer playthrough, like the Eternal Return Challenge, which seems like a Majora's Mask style game where you must become Elden Lord in a matter of 3 days or the world ends, with even more to it. But something that does work with multiplayer, and something which is frankly tough to live without when returning to vanilla Elden Ring, is the concept of perfect block. You see, if you've missed the combat from Sekiro or other block and parry based games, this is perfect for you, just as it is for me. Now you can block and deflect instead of parry at the right time to briefly stun or deplete enemy poise, and mostly without losing health yourself, even allowing brief moments for counterattacking. This comes alongside a new system of perfect attacking, where if you attack at the right time in sequence, you deal more damage and spend less stamina per attack. And you even attack faster every time, which promotes an even more aggressive and risky playstyle. And really, I'm not being even a little facetious when I say this. Even though Elden Ring is near perfect as it is, Reforged has gone a long way to fine-tune and even fix many of the pet peeves I had about the game, and adds new quality of life features and entirely new mechanics that make it feel fresh and better than ever. And for the most part, the vast majority of these are compatible with the multiplayer experience, with no needed input from the player. All of these changes is everything you need for a fresh and frankly better Elden Ring experience across the board. One that's actually allowed me to have a more fun multiplayer experience in a Souls game than I've ever had before.
I'll let you do the honors. Oh, with the sheath and everything.
And as is always the case with modders, I open my proverbial visor and take the knee for these masters of passionate development, which of course is all completely free. I just hope both of these mods will be made compatible with Shadow of the Erdtree soon enough, because I'll need this experience back in my hands as soon as possible. If you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and let me know what you thought of the mods featured here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!